I found a video on YouTube by a neurosurgeon from the US. His name Dr. Jack Cruz. And the video was titled Artificial Light is Killing Us. And to be totally transparent with you, at the time, my mind was super foggy and tired. And everything he said literally flew over my head. But I woke up the following morning and there was one sentence that kept echoing in my mind. And it said, you can't get healthy in the same light environment that made you sick. And it was a challenge because I was like, how can I be in an environment that doesn't have artificial lighting?
Welcome to the Brain Fitness Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Patrick Porter. Please join us on our mission to better a billion brains. Enjoy the episode and remember to share it with your family and friends.
Hello, this is Dr. Patrick Porter, and welcome back to the Brain Fitness Podcast. Today, I have a special guest, someone I met at a biohacking conference down in Florida. And we're always looking for ways to help people, of course, with their vision, with their brain health. And we're talking about how does light affect our brain and what do we have out there as far as protection. And I have Roudy with me here, and he's the CEO and founder of VivaRays, which I have at home and I use in the morning and I use at night. And when I'm using the computer after 5 o'clock at night, I use them all the time. So tell me a little bit about your story and how you overcame ADHD and ADD and those kind of things, and chronic fatigue, depression. What happens, we're all exposed to this unnatural light, and you're a big advocate of natural light, just as we are here at BraintAp. We believe that light, sound, and vibration, our cells need that light energy to perform at the optimum level. So tell us a little bit about your history and why you created this company.
Yeah, absolutely. So as a kid, I struggled with intense headaches, agitation, and inability to focus in the classroom. And all I wanted intuitively is to break free and be outside in nature. So my teachers did not like this, and they labeled me with ADHD, and they forced me back into the class where I felt like it's a prison cell. And as you may imagine, like as a kid, I wanted to find a way to break from that prison. So I became the troublemaker, and I was asked to leave 7 different schools. So it was a very challenging time to me, because right now I laugh at it and it's something like that could seem as funny, but like at the time as a kid, I was like suffocating, and my teachers really did not understand what was going on. So I start slowly to getting alienated from myself. And by the time I went to engineering school, I start living like a night owl, feeling wired all night and useless and drained during the day. It was like 19 years old. I felt like I've been chewed up and spat out by life, never up and like always tired, never up for much. And I felt like I was dragging myself through the day as if I had something extremely heavy on my back. Mm-hmm. And then after graduating from engineering school, I was working as an engineer in Africa. And during that time, I became the most disoriented and disconnected from myself ever. So I got fired from my job as an engineer. And I remember that day very well, because I woke up the second day completely paralyzed with sadness and fatigue. And imagine being in a state where like you're in bed staring at the ceiling for hours, and I couldn't find a compelling reason to leave my bed. So I was in a suicidal state, and I was seriously considering that. And a few evenings after that event, I stumbled upon a quote by Albert Einstein, and it said, "Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results." And boom, it literally struck me like a bolt of lightning. And in that moment, I decided that I no longer cared about my career and about what other people wanted me to do. So I decided to leave everything behind. I left my career and I started traveling with one intention in mind: to learn from different health experts, so that I could improve my health and well-being. And during my travels, I started learning from different health gurus. And I don't know about you, Patrick, but I was in this rabbit hole where everything seemed very contradicting, because different people were telling me, eat this, don't eat that, take this supplement, take this vitamin, take that gadget. And it was all too much and extremely confusing. And no matter how many diet I tried and how many supplements I took, I didn't feel any better. Like I was still in the same state, struggling deeply. So I thought to myself, oh my God, well, why does it need to be that complicated? And then a few evenings after, while I was lost in the vast sea of the internet, I found a video on YouTube by a neurosurgeon from the US. His name, Dr. Jack Kruse. And the video was titled Artificial Light is Killing Us. And ironically, it was 1 a.m. in the morning, and I'm blasted with all this artificial light on my face, watching a video telling me that artificial light is killing me. And to be totally transparent with you, at the time, my mind was super foggy and tired. And everything he said literally flew over my head. But I woke up the following morning, and there was one sentence that kept echoing in my mind. And it said, you can't get healthy in the same light environment that made you sick. So by light environment, he meant all the light that we're exposed to all the time when we are indoors, from LED lights, screens, televisions, etc. Having tried all the different diets and supplements without any long-lasting benefits, I decided to take his word to heart. And it was a challenge because I was like, how can I be in an environment that doesn't have artificial lighting? And luckily, I met this guy. He's a backpacker, and he recommended that I check out a website called Woofing, WOOFING, where you find all these farmers who are doing biodynamic farming, permaculture, and you could volunteer to go live and farm with them in exchange for accommodation and food. So I found this indigenous family up in northern Canada. I applied and I got accepted. And for 6 weeks, I was sleeping in my tent, being exposed only to natural sunlight during the day and fire and candlelight during the evening. So within a matter of 3 days, something phenomenal happened. My intense headaches and agitation disappeared. And having thought that I'm a night owl and that I'm not a morning person, I literally started sleeping shortly after the sunset to then wake up at dawn with no alarm clock every morning, feeling fresh, rested, energized, and exhilarated with a sense of joy that I've never felt before. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. One of the days, probably 4 or 5 days after arriving, I'm in the field working, and I feel this warm hand tapping on my shoulder. And this farmer looked at me, and he's praising me at the level of focus I was showing at the field. And me hearing this for the first time after like 22 years, I felt like chills traveling up and down my spine. I was tearing up because I realized in this moment, wow, like my old paradigm was shifting. I was no longer that ADHD kid that can't focus. I start viewing myself as this motivated, inspired, full of energy guy. But I asked myself, like, how did that change? I didn't change my diet. I didn't do any of the things that the health gurus were telling me to do. And that was all extremely fascinating to me. And even more puzzling than that, Patrick, after those 6 weeks ended, I came back to the city. At the time, I was living in Toronto. And within a matter of few weeks, I fell back into my old terrible routine of staying up late, scrolling on social media, feeling exhausted the second day, having no energy, no motivation. And I was like, whoa, like, how could that be the case? And being the curious soul that I am, I was curious to understand, like, how does light fundamentally impact our biology? Because every health guru I spoke with, they told me that the forces of physics like light and magnetism has nothing to do with biology, that our biology is operating in isolation from this. And for 7 years so far, I've been studying circadian biology and quantum biophysics. And it's been a fascinating journey because, to be honest, like the first thing like that came to my attention is, again, like the work of Albert Einstein, E=mc², the law of relativity, which I knew very well as an engineer, but I never thought it could ever be related to biology in any way. And realizing this for the first time, I was like, okay, E is light, M is matter, like our bodies and everything around us, and C is speed. And sometimes it sounds like it's coming out of a science fiction movie, but if you think about it, what this equation is saying is that light and matter are exactly the same thing. And when light slows down, it's turning into matter. And this means that we are light beings. And when light hits the cornea in our eye, we have a substance called the vitreous in the eye, composed of water, acid, and collagen. And its main purpose is to slow light down so that we can convert that light into electricity, which is being used to manufacture all of the hormones and brain chemicals that control our metabolism, it control the way we think, the way we feel, and the way we act. And we could go a little bit more into the details of that, but technically what the key takeaway is that the type of light that is getting in our eyes is subconsciously deciding how good we sleep, which mood we are in, how much energy we have, how well we can focus, and how much we can get done. So it's creating reality in a sense.
Yeah. Well, I tell people who've watched the podcast know that I say light is the most underprescribed nutrient on earth. And every cell needs it. We have something called the biopic system. It's faster than the nervous system. It works on the fascia of the body, and it's a light system. So every cell of your body is changing at every 40 seconds based on light emission from our cells. It's called the biopic effect. So when you think about this, and you experienced it for yourself, because if you don't get enough light, you get, as a psychologist, they call it seasonal affective disorder, right? If you live, especially in Canada, I grew up in Michigan, people had it all the time because they didn't get enough sunlight because they're inside all the time. So let's go a little deeper now into learning about light and darkness and how that dictates our sleep. Because you said you're out in the sun, when you're feeling good, you're out there working hard in the fields, in the sunlight, and you are only getting candlelight and firelight, which flickers at 10 hertz frequency. So you're also turning on the alpha brain before going to sleep, instead of looking at a screen and looking at social media, which is probably exciting the brain and activating more of a beta brain, which would be more along the lines of 16 to 22 hertz frequency. So how does that affect, how in your research now as an engineer, how does that affect the sleep quality and your ability to detox? Because one of the problems we have in our world today is people are so toxic, and they don't realize that light and sound and vibration, all of these things at the cellular level, our cells are an intricate dance with our environment. That's what biohacking is all about. When people talk about biohacking, it's what is the external world doing with the internal world and these mirror neurons and how they work in every cell. So let's go a little bit deeper into that.
Yeah, absolutely. So getting a great night's sleep on a consistent basis and waking up feeling refreshed and energized is not something that happened by chance. It literally happens by design, and it's controlled by a circadian force. And circadian comes from the Latin word circa and dia, which means approximately a day or 24 hours. So it's this like 24-hour cycle that we all go through as animals, humans, and plants, because the day becomes night and the night turns back into day. And evolutionarily, this dictated our behavior. It dictated whether we are alert, out hunting and foraging, or whether we are back in our camp resting and rejuvenating so that we can wake up feeling fresh and energized. And in order for us to adapt to this change, we've developed an internal clock that sits in the hypothalamus in the brain, and it determines when we go to sleep and when we wake up. And it goes way beyond that because it controls our energy level, our detoxification systems, our bowel movement, reproduction, mood, digestion, etc. And in a sense, this clock is taking light information and is responsible for timing those functions to an optimal time of the day or the night during a 24-hour cycle. So it's primarily creating structure and coherent communication between the billions of cells to create a harmonious symphony that we call health and well-being. And that explains why when I was on the farm, it completely changed my paradigm, because my cells became in an environment that led to this coherent communication, leading to a harmonious symphony that started manifesting in feeling more joyful, more energetic, more focused, more motivated. And if we think about it, it's just like a musical symphony. In order for an orchestra with many musicians to produce harmonious music, they need to be guided by a conductor. that reads those musical notes and instruct all the musician on what to do. And in this way, the musicians can synchronize and produce harmonious music. And in our body, this conductor is that master clock in the brain, in the hypothalamus. It's reading those musical notes coming from sunlight and darkness. And it's responsible for telling the musicians, like all of our organs, our endocrine systems, our nervous system, the millions of our cells, on what to do. And it's literally how our body knows how to navigate life, when to go to bed, when to wake up, when to think about big problems, when to digest, and when to repair, detoxify, and regenerate. And this central clock in the body is relying primarily on two main things. It's pretty simple. Number one, morning sunlight, especially after we wake up. It flows into our eyes, it gets converted into electric signal that flies into the hypothalamus, and it tells our body that the day is starting. And in a way, it activates our inner pharmacy so that we produce the right hormones at the right time of the day, so that we can feel alert, energized, focused, and ready for the day. The signal number two is darkness after the sunset. The moment the sun is setting, light is flying into our bodies and it's telling our brain that the day is ending. And when the body knows that the day is ending, we start secreting the right hormones that will allow us to repair, rejuvenate, and rest at night. Now, coming back to the analogy of the musical symphony, imagine if the conductor kept reading the wrong musical note. How would the music sound? It will be awful. Nobody wants to be in this symphony. Now, imagine if this happens to our body. And it actually does every single day. Every day in our modern life, we do not allow our conductors to read the proper information of light. Because number one, we are getting very little sunlight during the day. We are burying ourselves in indoor environments that are 1,000 times less bright than sunlight and that have a fraction of the nutritious frequencies that we are evolutionarily meant to get from that sun. That's on one side. On the other side, our living rooms at night are 1,000 times brighter than a full moon and infinitely more brighter than a new moon. So in a way, we are living upside down than how nature has intended us to live. And as you may imagine, when we are getting all these signals in a way that is very chaotic, we are losing our body is losing sense of rhythm and time. And with no rhythm and with no time, nothing can function in the body. In fact, every organ in the body works on a time clock that is controlled by light and darkness. For example, the liver, it's connected to our eyes, and it's the body's main detox organ. Because sometimes, like when I'm in conferences and people are trying to sell me those, detox supplements, I laugh. Because like, no matter how much you try to do and what you try to eat, if you are constantly in a light environment or in an environment where the forces of physics are contaminated, no matter what you try to do, it's going to be absolutely impossible to lead yourself to that healthy, vibrant, energetic place. For example, the liver, the main body's detox system, it's controlled by a circadian clock. And according to Chinese medicine, the enzymes in the liver that are involved in detoxification, they work most effectively between 1 and 3 a.m. when we are sleeping and fasting. But what happens is when we expose our eyes to artificial light after the sunset, is going to shift our clock, so much so that at 1 a.m. in the morning, the body is still thinking it's 10 p.m. And by the time it's 6 a.m. in the morning, the body thinks, oh, now it's 1 a.m. It's time for the liver to detoxify. And the alarm clock rings and we go about our day. So in this way, we start living a life that is almost upside down, and it completely disrupt and confuse the rhythm of every organ in our body and disrupt our ability to repair, rejuvenate, and clean ourselves at night, because we are meant to clean our brains, our eyes, our hearts, every organ in response to darkness. And that's when we need to have enough growth hormone in our body in order to do that. And when we view artificial light after the sunset, this cannot happen.
And most people don't understand that light is so important to our body, and artificial light is literally influencing our brain chemistry, down-regulating the neurotransmitters that we need to function. And people wonder why, that we do have a disorder. Obviously, we talked about it earlier, SAD, seasonal affective disorder, but most people are running around with low-level SAD, disorder, and they just think it's normal. But tell me a little bit about how artificial light destroys motivation, because especially here in America, in the northern hemisphere here, we're go-getters, right? We got to get up in the morning, we got to go get our goals, we got to go achieve things. But what is it doing to our motivation, our productivity, and what can we do to regain that control?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a chronobiologist, his name is Dr. Samer Hattar. He published a few papers showing how very little amounts of artificial light, especially in the blue and green light frequencies, entering our eyes after the sunset, activate an area in the brain called the habenula, and it's known as the disappointment center. And his study showed that when people view artificial light after the sunset, they also wake up the second day with much less dopamine in their system. So those people are much more likely to wake up feeling unsatisfied, unmotivated, and it lowers their cognition and memory. And dopamine is this miraculous molecule that allows us to see outside of the box, to see the bigger picture in life. It's the motivation hormone, but it also allows us to sit down and pay attention. And one of the epidemics today in today's world, especially young people, they lack attention. They're constantly distracted by short cycle distractions around them. So, when we are replacing the darkness at night with artificial light, we are subconsciously messing up with our neurotransmitter in such a way that is suppressing our motivation level and is driving us to live a life that is with less satisfaction. Also, another interesting fact is melatonin is supposed to rise at night in response to darkness. And when we wake up the second day, melatonin will convert back into serotonin when we view sunlight. And serotonin is the hormone of internal well-being. It's almost like, I like to describe it as like it drives a state of inner satisfaction with what you currently have, a state of gratitude, a state of presence and appreciation of where you are in life and who you are in life. So when we are constantly exposed to artificial light at night, we are completely destroying melatonin production and the ability of melatonin to turn back into serotonin, which obviously messes up with our mood. And if we combine this with lack of sunlight, it becomes an absolutely tragic thing to do, because it's sunlight and UV light, which most people block by wearing sunglasses, unfortunately, is what's providing the energy for converting amino acids in the eye, like tryptophan, into serotonin and melatonin, and tyrosine into dopamine. So on one side, sunlight converts tyrosine into dopamine first thing in the morning, raising your dopamine level by up to 200%. And at night, viewing artificial light is destroying your dopamine. And what happened in our modern world, we're combining two tragic things: lack of sunlight and exposure to artificial light at night. Also, sunlight gives the energy to produce a molecule called POMC, propiomelaanocortin, which is composed of 242 amino acids that can become so many peptides and hormones. And one of the things that POMC can become is beta endorphin. And beta endorphin is a natural painkiller and a feel-good hormone. It's the only opioid in nature that is not addictive. And today there's an epidemic in the US of people addicted to opioid. And in reality, nature has designed us to be addicted to her. And when we stop wearing sunglasses during the day, living a life that is completely alienated from Mother Nature, not getting sunlight exposure and replacing this with artificial light, we destroy our natural ability to raise those hormones and neurotransmitters that allow us to feel good. And as a human beings, inherently, we move towards anything that makes us feel good. And when this is disconnected, and when the sustainable ways that drive those feel-good hormones are not there, we then tend to fall into behaviors that are addictive, like porn, sugar, scrolling on social media. All of these behaviors are merely an attempt to raise dopamine and beta endorphin in a very unsustainable, destructive way.
When we think about natural rhythms and cadences and things of that nature, you talk about light and fertility, even sexuality and menopause. And tell us a little bit about how light affects these things, because people don't even think about that. Right now, there's a rise. I mean, I can't tell you how many times people ask me, can BrainTap help me to become more fertile? I'm not able to have a baby. You know, we've been trying for years. What's going on? But you say there's a connection between the artificial light effect and what's happening to the body. Go into detail a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So our master sex hormone, pregnenolone, is made in the inner mitochondrial membrane in response to morning sunlight. And pregnenolone is literally the raw material from which the stress hormone cortisol is produced, and also sex hormones like estrogen and testosterone and progesterone are made. And when we first wake up in the morning and light enters our eyes, the body will convert some of that pregnenolone into cortisol. And under balanced conditions, when we are feeling safe and good in our environment, the body will convert the rest of that pregnenolone to youth and sex hormones. Like hormones like estrogen and progesterone are important to keep our energy level up, but they're also absolutely necessary for example, things like youthful looking skin and healthy hair and so on. However, if our mitochondria is constantly sensing a threat in the body, like a tiger is chasing us, for instance, the pregnenolone will constantly be diverted from fertility and youth pathway to more stress hormone cortisol, so that you can fight and flight. Because in that moment, your body is not trying to prioritize youthful looking skin or is not trying to prioritize the creation of a baby. The one thing you're trying to do is to survive and run away from that tiger. And interestingly enough, there's a German scientist back in the 1970s. I think you'll love his work, Dr. Patrick. He published many studies. His name is Fritz Hollwesch. And one of the studies he published is how sitting under artificial blue light all day increases the stress hormone cortisol and ACTH in abnormal ways. And what happened if, like, when somebody is constantly in artificial light, their mitochondria is constantly sensing a threat somehow, and diverting pregnenolone from youth pathways to more cortisol. And this really starts taxing the sexual glands, leading to infertility and brain fog and sluggishness. Also, it ties very well with menopause. I've been to many conferences with like women's health. And when I share this tip with women, I'm fascinated with like how many hundreds and even close to thousands of messages I've received so far after sharing this tip of women being blown away by how fast they were able to reverse their menopausal suffering, let's say. Because during pre-menopause, the ovaries slowly stop producing sex hormones, but in a healthy woman, the adrenal glands are supposed to compensate by secreting small quantities of estrogen and progesterone to ensure that the transition goes smoothly and as easily as possible. However, chronic stressors like artificial blue light will definitely impede this process by forcing the conversion of pregnenolone to more and more cortisol. And with no amount of estrogen and progesterone being produced for that healthy transition, then most women will start experiencing the hot flashes, weight gain, fatigue, drop of energy level. And unfortunately, it became something normalized where, these are the menopausal thing that we're meant to experience at this age. But the truth is, no, we are like, every woman needs to know that she's not meant to experience those things. And it's a contaminated environment and forces of physics in their environment that are causing their body to respond in a very, very unbalanced way, and therefore causing them those unbalanced effects.
One of the things that really drew me to your glasses that you created was that it's not a one size fits all. You have a system. There's 3 different lenses when I got it, and they kind of stack on top of each other if you want to use them in that. I want you to go into a little bit of detail, but talk about why that's important for stress. Because right now, people don't understand when they are stressed out, their liver pumps 25 grams of sugar into their bloodstream. And that's causing this weight gain that we're seeing in their body is responding, and light plays a big role in that. And wearing these glasses can actually help them with their physical well-being, not just in their brain health, but in their physiology and what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. And there's a lot to uncover there. So when blue light causes cortisol to be secreted by the body, what cortisol does is it drives glucose to the limbs, because purposefully in nature, when we see a tiger, we need the glucose so that we can run, fight and flight. However, those events in nature happens in a purposeful way where they're like contraction, they're like pulses. There's an ebb and flow, and cortisol is not meant to be chronically high. And when it's chronically high, it's increasing blood glucose even without eating anything. What do we know about cortisol? It's a it triggers gluconeogenesis, which is the production of glucose from the liver without eating any carbs. So it no longer becomes a question of diet in this. If you're trying to regulate your blood glucose level and you're obsessed about eat this, don't eat that, yet you are living in an environment that is completely contaminated and that is toxic, no matter how much you try to control your food intake, light entering your eyes and the wrong frequencies at the wrong time are going to increase and flood your body with blood glucose, and then the blood glucose will drop down, and this chaotic blood glucose level will lead to chaotic emotions and a chaotic mind. It makes you completely emotional. And at that point, you start having those sugar and carb craving. And I get this story all the time of clients who realize, oh my God, I actually get my most intense, uncontrollable cravings for sugar and carb at night when I'm watching this Netflix movie. And out of a sudden, I find myself in front of the fridge eating all this food uncontrollably. And the reality is that, yes, blue light not only increases your blood glucose and leads to sugar and carb craving, but it also increases ghrelin, the hunger hormone, and it suppresses leptin, the satiety hormone, all of which is a combination for eat more and exercise less. So with that being said, when we start hearing all those things about blue light, we may easily come to a conclusion that, oh my God, blue light is evil and bad, and I need to eliminate it from my life. But this is unfortunately not the full picture, because again, back to the law of relativity and Einstein, in nature, there's nothing good or bad. Everything is relative, and there's a time and place for everything. And when we do the right thing at the right time, it creates wonders. But if we do that same thing at the wrong time, it creates disasters. So in this way, blue light is purposeful during the day because it's the primarily color that resets our circadian rhythm. In fact, the 480 nanometer frequency from blue light is the frequency that melanopsin, that protein in the eye that is light sensitive, is most sensitive to. And when we view that blue light first thing in the morning, it tells our brain it's daytime and it increases our energy level. So obviously we need blue light. But the problem in today's world is that this blue light that we're getting is not even full spectrum blue light. It's a narrow spike of blue light at 455 nanometer that is not balanced and proportionate with the other frequencies of colors like yellow, orange, and red light. And nature doesn't operate that way. Every system in nature is composed of forces of polar opposites that interchange in balance. And when we view sunlight and the full spectrum sunlight, it's exactly that. It's symmetrical, and there are two forces of lights. On one side, you have UV light and blue light, which are the high frequency, low wavelength light. On the other side, you have yellow, orange, red, and infrared, which are lower frequencies, higher wavelength light. And those forces balance each other out. They come as a package. The problem today is that when we are indoors in front of screens or under LED lights, we're being exposed to a blue light that is very narrow and that is not balanced and proportionate with its polar opposite. And studies have shown that this blue light in isolation causes inflammation and increases oxidative stress, which makes sense because evolutionarily, we have never seen blue light in isolation from its polar opposite. Anytime we are exposed to blue, it comes with the other frequencies of colors. And that explains why many people indoors, or me as a kid, for instance, sitting under those fluorescents, I felt agitated, I had headaches, I had eye strain, I couldn't focus. And that is exactly because that blue light is very unbalanced during the day. And in order to solve this, we came up with the blue light harmonizer glasses, which are very different than many of the blue blockers that people wear during the day. Those are usually like yellow tinted glasses. And the problem with those is that, yes, they block 100% of the spike of blue light at 455. But in the process of doing this, they eliminate all of the blue turquoise at 480 nanometer. And therefore, melanopsin is not stimulated with a frequency that will tell the brain it's daytime, and it will start suppressing your energy level and leading to circadian disruption. Whereas the glasses I'm wearing right now, they address specifically that 455 nanometer frequency, decreasing its sharpness and making it more balanced and proportionate with the green, yellow, and orange light, so that you're getting less inflammatory light into your eyes and you're moving towards a more balanced position of that light entering the eyes. And therefore, it instantly decreases eye strain, headaches, agitation, while helping you to maintain optimal energy level during the day. And that covers what people need to do when they find themselves in an indoor light environment during the day, exposed to artificial light. Now, after the sunset, the equation changes completely because evolutionarily, our ancestors have never been exposed to any form of blue and green light after the sunset. Those are high frequency colors that tell the brain it's daytime. And therefore, one viewing sunset is an absolutely important event of the day because it will provide the body with the right information that the day is ending so that we can start preparing for a restful night's sleep. But the issue happens is that if we do this and we come back home, we're exposed to the second sun, that alien sun from the LED lights and the screens. And it's not only the screens from the phone and the computer and the televisions. Literally, those lights we're using in our homes, they emit the same spectral curve of light like the one emitted by the computer and by the phone, sadly. And in this case, to resolve this, we have the clip of the evening lenses, which clips seamlessly onto the base frame. And those mimic the color temperature of the bonfire at 1700 kelvins, eliminating all of the blue and the highest frequency green. And they allow the nervous system to wind down and relax, just like our ancestors did when they were gathering around the fire after the sunset. They felt relaxed, they calmed down, but they have enough energy to dance, cook, and socialize. And that is the purpose of the evening lenses. Now, we keep those evening lenses on until 1 hour before bedtime. And that's when we switch to the nighttime lenses. And the nighttime lenses, they're like the end of the bonfire when the wood turns into amber coil. By this time, we feel cozy, ready for bed. And the reason why these lenses are so strong, and our clients, they call them the sleeping pill, is because simply they block 100% of all of the blue, all of the green, and they decrease the brightness by 15 times, which is an absolutely important feature because bright light of any color could also disrupt our circadian rhythm. And therefore, when we put these glasses 1 hour before bedtime, the brain knows that it's completely dark outside. It optimizes melatonin, the highest antioxidant in nature, and the sleep hormone. And this sends a signal to activate autophagy, apoptosis, mitophagy, all these fancy terms to say the programs that allow us to turn old cells into new cells and allow us to repair and clean ourselves at night so that we can wake up feeling rested, energized, and ready for the day.
they can go to VivaRays.com. Of course, if they use the term BrainTap, they can get 10% off anything they order there. But you also have a Light Mastery ebook that they can download. They can go to your website, get that free ebook, learn a lot more. If you've liked what you've heard here, you can go there and get that book. We'll have the links in the show notes below. But where else can they learn more from you about all this? Because you're actually shedding the light on a lot of things that people don't believe. I mean, they think just wearing sunglasses might block this. And you're saying that regular sunglasses might be blocking out the good rays, but letting in the bad rays, correct? I mean, they're not scientifically created to harmonize this blue light energy to get our brain and body to work the way it was designed. So where else can they learn more from you?
Yes, so we are very driven by the desire to educate about light and health, and we share a lot of educational posts on our Instagram, VivaRays, also on our YouTube. And we have a newsletter that goes out every Thursday where I have a deep dive about light and one specific topic of health that our community usually pick. I like to do a lot of blog posting, so I have a deep dive and write a very educational, deep blog post about the topic. And we do share it with all of our subscribers every Thursday on our email newsletter. So when they go to our website and download the e-booklet, Light, the Key to Mastering Your Sleep and Energy, they will automatically also be added to our newsletter, and they will be receiving all of the education about light and health. As
we wrap up today, this has been great. I mean, it's very rarely that I hear something new about light, but you've shared a lot of new concepts and new ideas that I'm going to continue to do some research on and work on, but it's fantastic. I have your lenses myself. I use them every day at home. When people are going there and they're going to order, is there anything, I mean, what I did is I had my prescription done. So if people are wondering if they're wearing prescription lenses, you even have a solution for that because I gave you my prescription, you got my prescription created so that I can wear the glasses as my prescription glasses, and then I can put the lenses over top of them. And you have a very unique, they can look at it on your website, how it works. They basically just clip over top of the lenses. So you don't have to put on another pair of glasses, which really saves a lot of money and time and is nice because I can just carry the lenses with me when I travel. But what have I forgot to ask you about your specific lenses at VivaRays that people might want to know? Besides the fact there's a 90-day money-back guarantee if they don't find the services, but what else can you tell us about it?
I think one of the features that I'm very, very excited about is particularly for people who wear prescription. And when I met you in the conference, the one thing I wanted to really share with you is that all prescription lenses, unfortunately, when you make them at the optometrist office, they put a tint that blocks 100% of UVA and UVB light. So anytime you are outside in sunlight, you are blocking yourself from getting those frequencies of light that our body use to manufacture most of our neurotransmitters and hormones. So we wanted to solve that problem, even to add some fuel to the fire. Also, optometrists right now, they sell people clear blue light blocking glasses. So when you go to make your prescription, they ask you, do you want blue blockers on it? And people say yes. They add this tint, and this tint actually block blue-purple light up to 420 nanometer. However, if you look at the spectral curve of an LED bulb or screen, it doesn't emit any blue-purple below 420, and it starts its emission at 430 nanometer. So people are wearing these clear blue blockers indoors that are not blocking the harmful blue light that is coming from their screen. The harmful thing is now your prescription lenses outside are blocking UVA, UVB, and blue-purple light, which are absolutely necessary frequencies for your thyroid, for your pituitary, etc. So we wanted to solve this problem, and we came up with a system called the 4-in-1 instead of the 3-in-1. On our website, it's called UV transmitter lenses. And for anybody who wear prescription, they will order their base frame in prescription, and the lenses are designed to allow 60% more UVA and UVB and 100% of the blue-purple light, so that when you are outside in the sun, walking your dog or driving or doing any activity that requires vision, where you can't remove your lenses, you're still subconsciously, without needing to think about it, getting that healthy light in your eyes. And then you will have 3 clips, daytime, evening, and nighttime, that you will use when you are exposing yourself to artificial lights, depending on the time of the day.
Awesome. So you can go to VivaRays.com. We're going to have that information in the show notes. If you're listening to this and you can't write it down, you can go there, use the code braintap, and you're going to get 10% off of that. Go there, do your research, start using these lenses. Are awesome. I just learned something now. I should be wearing them all day long instead of the ones I have on. I didn't realize that. I guess I need to do a little more research myself, because I wear them at home, because when I'm home, they're easy for me to put on and use while I'm around the house and outside in my backyard. I want to thank you for being a guest on the podcast. We're going to get this out to people. Light is the most underprescribed nutrient. It's free. You can go outside and get it. But if you're wearing those sunglasses or you're wearing just regular glasses, I didn't realize that's even blocking out the good UV rays. You need to research this, find out about it. And thank you for all your knowledge, all your time. I'm sorry you had to go through what you went through to get to it, but we all find our superpowers from our disabilities or what's happened to us. So congratulations on finding that and helping to share that with the world.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure, Patrick.
BrainTap Nation, please like and share this podcast. Get it to your family and friends. They don't understand exactly what's happening with their body with light and why they need to be really exposing themselves to the right amount of light. So I look forward to sharing this with the world and helping you to grow your company and helping people to have better brains. So thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us on our mission to better a billion brains. Follow at Dr. Patrick Porter on social media for updates, and remember to practice brain fitness every day.